Hello and welcome back to the Greenhorn Photo Taker. It is finally time to get back to the best trail vistas in New Jersey. Before we do that, I do need to apologize and at least explain my absence. First, it was good news. We started with a nice little vacation into New England. Check out those videos if you're interested in that type of road trip. But then I got saddled with some Mohs surgery that required 7 staples and some internal stitches, and basically put me out of action for about 3 weeks. And then last week, it rained out almost every day. And then this past weekend, I just could not tear myself away from the Olympics. So that's basically in a nutshell why I've been away from the Vista series. Now, it showed in this video though, as I went up to my newest overlook, Windbeam Mountain in Ringwood. Yeah, I had some problems with my camera. The audio didn't work. Welcome back to a moderately distant. The record button didn't work at times. All self-inflicted wounds. So yeah, it's going to take, I guess, a time or two to get back into the swing of things. But that's all right. We'll do a talking head type of video here and expand upon with the B-roll footage that I did get, which does look great and I'm happy with. So let's talk about the Vista. Like I said, this was Windbeam Mountain Overlook in Ringwood, New Jersey. It's part of the somewhat famous for New Jersey Stonetown Circular Trail. And it's really several different lookouts in one area on top of the summit. And at first, this led me to some disappointment. Arriving at the Vista Point, you could tell right away it wasn't as expansive as some of the other ones that we've been to. And I really was hoping for another challenger to what I think is going to be the top spot. Here though, you do have to walk around on that summit area to get to 3 or 4 different Vista points. So while the summit area is really lovely, in terms of the rankings, it will definitely slide down towards the middle or bottom of our top 10 list, just because there isn't a single expansive view. Of the 3 spots that I'm speaking of, I think the Wanakee Reservoir view, facing east, facing towards a New York City skyline view, will be the one that is ultimately considered for a top 10 ranking. It's the most expansive. It has a water feature, and like I said, it's got a bit of the New York City skyline, especially a section that pops out between 2 ridge lines that really looks lovely. When I was there the other night, it even had a rainbow emerging right near that valley that the 2 ridges make. So that was a moment of nostalgia that I will not forget. I tried to tease the rainbow out of the footage. It wasn't a perfect rainbow, but still in the moment to see those colors splashing down on the city skyline was pretty amazing. Also, please be careful here. There is a steep drop off. You're standing on top of some exposed bedrock that is nearly the height of some treetops. So falling here would probably lead to imminent death. Maybe you can get away with a broken bone or 2 if you bounce on the way down, but I think it would probably be your last move. So be careful. And I think the downside to this viewpoint is merely that it's not quite as expansive as, say, something at High Point Monument or even a Winokie High Point down the road. It's probably about 120 or 130 degree field of view, which is pretty good. But there are also many man-made structures in that view. I think I see some condos, definitely some cell towers, some sporadic houses in the ridgeline. I will not take points away for the New York City skyline. That's pretty mesmerizing, but the rest can be a bit distracting. Before we get to a description of the other viewpoints, I do want to talk about the ascent up. It's probably a 2.3 mile out and back. If you take the most direct route, it is up a 30 to 40% grade hill for a good chunk of that mile ascent. So that did, I hadn't hiked in a while, but my legs were jello by the end. The trail signage is not great, especially towards the base. I followed 3 different trail markers at one point in time, and some of them are, faded green on tree trunks. Especially as you get towards dusk, it's very difficult to see. So bring your All Trails map with you and follow along with the GPS. Once you're on the trail, you can follow the route. Just sometimes when you're doing a double check to make sure you're following the right trail, it's not really possible to see where you are without a GPS. There's also at least as of August 2024, a significant downed tree across the trail at one point. And upon first inspection, when you get to it, it does not really look passable without doing some bushwhacking. It's definitely passable. It took me about 3 minutes to find a good route. Just be wary when you get there. You don't have to turn around. You can definitely find your way through the fallen tree. The last note I have on the trail itself, at one point when you are about to get to the final Vista point, which there is a false summit, then you go down into a ravine and then back up the other side, and that gets you to the final summit. There is a legitimate, rock scramble that requires 3, points of contact at all times. It's very short. It's no more than 10 or 15 feet. But if you're not comfortable with rock scrambles, I would not do this last part, especially on the way down. At least for me, I had to hitch along on my bottom, to slide down a bit. But again, it's very brief, but very fun. The other viewpoints that I mentioned, they are lovely. Not as expansive as the east view over the reservoir. But if you can imagine, a narrow field of view, especially at the time when I was there, around 7 p.m. on a pretty sunny day, just seeing the shadows work their way across the ridges was pretty great. And arguably the best view of them all was not really near the summit, maybe 3/4 of the way up, a little bit off trail on top of a rocky outcrop. It did have a pretty expansive view that incorporated the ridgeline and the reservoir. And then just down from the rock, there was a very narrow field of view into the New York City skyline. I didn't include this as part of the actual summit, but just wanted to note that on the way up, don't miss this viewpoint either. Very easy to spot. You'll see a trail that goes off for about 15-20 feet off the main trail. I think I probably have 3 or 4 more destinations before finishing up this series, at least for now. Maybe we'll have a part 2 at one point in time. So what other vistas should I check out? I definitely will ascend Mount Tammany. I definitely will ascend in Vernon on the Appalachian Trail, the Pinwheel Vista. And maybe I will try to hit Wildcat Ridge in Rockaway. I'm not sure. I had to look up some of those viewpoints to make sure that it's viable. But if you have any other options or any other ideas, please drop a comment below. I think I'll leave you here as I left the summit on that day. Sun setting, beautiful ridgeline behind me, sun stars in a pitch pine, and the American flag blowing in the wind on an election year. Enjoy, and thank you very much for watching. Get out and explore.